I'm Patty Simpson with Simpson Math. In this video, we're going to take fractions of numbers and take percents of numbers. So in our first example, it says, what is half of 16? Now, intuitively, most of us can take 16 and just split it in half and say that that answer is 8. But what are we doing mathematically to discover that? Well, really, we are multiplying 1/2 times that 16. 1/2 times 16 is how we're ending up with that 8. So remember, when we multiply with fractions, we multiply straight across. So this 16 is really over a 1. So you just multiply your top times your top, your bottom times your bottom. So 16 divided by 2 gives us the 8 that we intuitively said. So when we are taking a fraction of a number, we can just simply divide. Here's another example of that. Have 3/8 of 24. I'm just going to take my 3/8 and multiply times 24. Again, that 24 is over 1. Multiply the top times the top, my numerators together, and I multiply my denominator. Now notice I didn't multiply that to make it 72. Instead, I left it as 3 times 24. You can multiply it to make it 72. I'm going to go ahead and simplify first, though. It's just the way I like to do it, is do this division first and then multiply. Make it simple first and then multiply. So 24 divided by 8 is equal to 3. So I'm really just doing 3 times 3, which is 9. Notice that if you had multiplied first and done 3 times 24, you would have gotten 72 on top. 72 divided by 8 is also 9. So 3/8 of 24 is equal to 9. If I split that into 3/8, then 9 is in each one of those 3/8. Now we're going to take percents. Now remember that percents are just fractions with the denominator of 100. So the same strategy works. When I ask what is 25% of 120, I'm doing the same thing I was doing here, where I'm just taking a fraction of a number, because this 25% could be rewritten with a denominator. You know, that percent sign just turns into 100. Then I'm just multiplying again. So that 120 would have a 1 underneath it. So I'm just multiplying straight across again. So I have 25. Now maybe we could simplify first and say 25 over 100. Well, 25 goes in there 1 time, and 25 goes into 100 4 times. So 25% is the same as 25 hundredths, but it's also the same as 1/4. And I'm still multiplying it times 120. Now I'm just multiplying straight across. So I have 120 over 4. Do that division and you end up with 30. I'm going to do that same multiplication here. What is 75% of 20? So again, 75% is just a fraction. It's 75 over 100. So I'm just going to do 75 over 100 of that 20. And again, I could do some simplification first. So that 75, well, 25 goes into 75 3 times, and 25 goes into 100 4 times. So 75 hundredths is the same as 3/4. I can multiply that times the 20. Again, I like to simplify if I can. Notice that on top, I'm going to have 3 times 20. On bottom, I'm going to have just a 4. This 4 can go into that 25 times. So then I end up just multiplying 3 times 5, which is 15. 3/4 of that is 15. Then what is 60% of 40 gallons? Again, I'm just going to simply multiply. 60% is just 60. My percent sign turns into a denominator of 100 times the 40 gallons. Here, this if I divide this top and this bottom by 10, I end up with just 6/10. 6/10 is the same number as 60 hundredths. Then on top, I'm going to have 6 times 40. On bottom, I'm going to have this 10. Notice this 10 and this 40 divided by 10 just leaves me with 4. So I end up with 24. So anytime we're dealing with a fraction of a number, if I want to know the fraction of a number, I'm just simply going to multiply. Now in each one of these cases, I turned my percents into a fraction to multiply, but I could also multiply by its decimal form. So remember that 25 over 100 could also be written as 25 hundredths, like this, 0.25. So I could just simply multiply 0.25 times 120, and I would end up with that same 30. I'll do one example where I do the multiplication for you, where I have 60% of 40. I could write this as 60 hundredths or just 6/10. So this 40 gallons times that 6/10. Remember, when you're multiplying by a decimal, you just ignore the decimal till the end. So I'm going to ignore that decimal and just say 6 times 0 is 0. 6 times 4 is 24. Once I've done the multiplication, then I look at the decimal. I say, look, there's one number behind the decimal place. So in my answer, there needs to be one number behind the decimal place. So notice that even if I multiply it with its decimal form, I end up with 24 is 60% of 40. Math made simple. It's some math. Thanks for watching.